Deep within the ancient walls of Vatican City lies a place few have ever seen, a repository of secrets guarded for centuries. I'm talking about the Vatican's secret archives, and within them, a section that stirs both fear and fascination, the records of exorcisms. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on this mysterious and often misunderstood practice of the Catholic Church. What really happens during an exorcism, and what do these historical documents reveal? Let's dive in. The idea of demonic possession and exorcism has been a part of Christian tradition for 2,000 years, rooted in the biblical accounts of Jesus casting out demons. But how did this evolve into the structured rite we hear about today? The official rite of exorcism, as practiced by the Catholic Church, isn't something taken lightly. It's a last resort, a solemn ceremony performed only after all other possibilities, especially psychological and medical conditions, have been thoroughly ruled out by doctors. So, what leads the Church to believe an exorcism is necessary? The Vatican has specific criteria. These aren't just feelings or strange behaviors. We're talking about things like speaking or understanding languages the person has never learned, displaying strength beyond their physical capabilities, having a violent aversion to sacred objects like a crucifix or holy water, and revealing hidden knowledge about distant or secret things. Only when these signs are present and persistent, and medical science has no explanation, will a priest, specially appointed by a bishop, be called in. Now, let's talk about the archives themselves. These aren't just dusty old books filled with spooky stories. They are detailed, almost clinical, case files. Each document meticulously records the process. It includes the initial investigation, medical and psychiatric evaluations, interviews with the individual and their family, and a play-by-play of the exorcism rite itself. The priests document the prayers said, the reactions of the afflicted person, and any strange phenomena that occurred. The purpose of these records isn't to sensationalize, but to study, to understand, and to provide guidance for future cases. They serve as a historical and theological resource for the Church. One of the most famous cases often associated with these archives, although its records are not publicly available, is the story of Anneliese Michel in the 1970s. Her tragic case, which inspired the film The Exorcism of Emily Rose, serves as a stark reminder of the complexities involved. It highlighted the critical importance of distinguishing between mental illness and what the Church defines as spiritual affliction, a line that even experts find difficult to navigate. So, what does the modern rite of exorcism look like? It's not what you see in Hollywood movies. There are no levitating beds or spinning heads. It's a formal and lengthy process of prayer. The priest, often accompanied by assistants, recites specific prayers from a book called De Exorcismis et Supplicationibus Quibusdam, or of exorcisms and certain supplications. The rite involves prayers, blessings, the sprinkling of holy water, and the laying on of hands. The goal is not to engage in a dramatic battle with a demon, but to command the entity to leave in the name of Jesus Christ, relying on the authority of God, not the power of the priest. Interestingly, in recent years, the Vatican has seen a renewed interest and a reported increase in the demand for exorcists. In response, the Church has been training more priests for this specific ministry, holding conferences and courses in Rome to equip them for the task. This suggests that in our modern, scientific age, the belief in this spiritual struggle persists. In the remote, snow-capped mountains of Tibet, nestled within the ancient walls of the monastery, lies a collection of manuscripts unlike any other. For centuries, monks have meticulously documented a chilling phenomenon: villagers who, after passing away, rise again. These aren't the flesh-eating monsters of modern fiction. Instead, they are what the locals call langs, or the walking dead. The texts describe them as stiff, silent figures, their skin pale and their eyes vacant, driven by a singular, mysterious purpose. They are said to walk in straight lines, unable to bend or turn, often returning to their former homes or wandering aimlessly through the valleys. One of the most famous accounts dates back to the 18th century. It tells the story of a young woman named Dalma who succumbed to a sudden illness. Days after her funeral, she was seen walking through her village, her body rigid, her expression blank. The villagers, terrified, sought the help of the local lamas. According to the monastery's records, the lamas performed a series of complex rituals designed to release the spirit trapped within the body. They believed that a lang is created when a person's consciousness fails to separate from their physical form at the moment of death, often due to a powerful lingering attachment or a malevolent spirit's influence. The ritual to subdue a lang is fraught with peril. The texts describe a specific ceremony where a lama must confront the walking corpse and strike a precise point on its body with a ritual dagger. This act is believed to sever the spiritual tether and allow the body to finally rest. However, any hesitation or mistake could have dire consequences. One legend speaks of a lang that managed to touch a living person's shadow, instantly transferring the curse and creating another walking dead. Another tale recounts how a lang's toxic breath could prove fatal to anyone who came too close. So, what are we to make of these incredible stories? Are they simply folklore, cautionary tales passed down through generations to explain the mysteries of life and death? Or is there something more to them? Some anthropologists suggest that the lang phenomenon could be rooted in rare medical conditions that mimic death, like certain forms of catalepsy, where a person can appear deceased for days. In the isolated, high-altitude environment of the Himalayas, such an event would have been incomprehensible and easily interpreted as a supernatural occurrence. Imagine the shock of seeing a loved one, whom you had already mourned and buried, suddenly reappear, seemingly alive but not truly living. Modern science might dismiss these accounts as superstition, but for the people of the Himalayas, and for the monks who have chronicled these events for centuries, the langs are a very real and terrifying part of their history. The monastery's manuscripts serve as a chilling reminder that there are corners of our world where the line between life and death is not as clear as we might think. These ancient texts aren't just stories. They read a window into a belief system that grapples with one of humanity's greatest fears. What happens after we die, and what if, sometimes, the body doesn't get the message? Thanks for watching, and if you found this story as fascinating as I did, don't forget to like and subscribe for more journeys into the unknown. Have you ever walked through an old cemetery and noticed those crypts? The small stone houses for the dead? Some of them are sealed, not just locked, but completely bricked up, never to be opened again. It makes you wonder, what could be inside that's so terrifying? It needs to be permanently contained. Today, we re-delving into the chilling and often hidden history of why priests have been called upon to seal crypts for good. This isn't just about locking a door. We're talking about ancient rituals, solemn prayers, and physical barriers of brick and mortar, all meant to create an unbreakable seal. Why go to such extreme lengths? The reasons are rooted in beliefs that stretch back centuries, blending folklore, faith, and a very real fear of the unknown. One of the most common reasons is the belief in restless spirits. Imagine a powerful or malevolent individual buried within a family mausoleum. If their spirit is believed to be causing harm, tormenting the living, or refusing to pass on, the church might be called in. A priest would perform rites of exorcism or special blessings, not just on the body, but on the entire structure. The goal is to pacify the spirit and contain its influence. Sealing the tomb is the final physical act of this spiritual containment, ensuring that whatever is inside stays inside. It's a declaration that this space is now off limits to both the living and the dead. Then there's the issue of desecration. Throughout history, tomb robbing has been a serious problem. But sometimes it's not about treasure. It's about something far more sinister: necromancy and dark rituals. There have been accounts of cults or individuals breaking into crypts to steal remains for profane ceremonies. To prevent this, a family might request the church to sanctify and permanently seal the tomb. The priest's involvement elevates the act from simple construction to a sacred barrier, protected by divine authority. The sealed entrance becomes a warning, a symbol that this ground is hallowed and not to be disturbed by those with dark intentions. Another fascinating reason is the fear of vampirism or other undead legends. In many cultures, particularly in Eastern Europe, the belief in vampires was very real. If someone was suspected of being a vampire after death, perhaps due to an unusual appearance of the corpse or unexplained illnesses and deaths in the community, extreme measures were taken. The body might be staked, but the tomb itself would be sealed by a priest to prevent the creature from rising and preying on the living. The combination of holy rites and a physical barrier was seen as the ultimate defense against a supernatural threat. These weren't just stories. They were genuine fears that led to real-world actions. Sometimes, the sealing was done to contain a curse. A family might believe they are afflicted by a curse originating from a specific ancestor. By sealing that ancestor's tomb with religious ceremony, they hope to break the chain and protect future generations. The priest acts as a spiritual intermediary, performing rituals to neutralize the malevolent energy and trap it within the stone walls of the crypt. The sealed tomb becomes a monument to the end of a dark legacy. So the next time you see a bricked-up crypt, remember it's not just old architecture. It could be a story of a restless spirit, a defense against dark magic, a safeguard against the undead, or the final chapter in a family curse. These sealed tombs are silent testaments to a time when the veil between our world and the next was thought to be terrifyingly thin, and a priest's prayer, combined with brick and mortar, was the last line of defense. What do you think? Are these just old superstitions? Or is there something more to these sealed tombs? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this journey into the unknown, be sure to like and subscribe for more mysteries. Have you ever heard those chilling stories about the undead, the restless spirits, the revenants who claw their way back from the grave? For most of us, these are just tales for a dark and stormy night. But for people in medieval Europe, this was a very real, very terrifying possibility. So real, in fact, that they developed some pretty extreme methods to make sure the dead stayed dead. And one of the most dramatic was collapsing the entire grave. Now, you might be thinking, isn't that a bit disrespectful? Well, when you're refaced with the belief that a deceased loved one could return as a malevolent spirit to plague your village, respect takes a back seat to survival. This fear wasn't just a random superstition. It was deeply rooted in their understanding of the world. They believed that certain individuals, perhaps those who died suddenly, violently, or were considered outsiders in life, were more likely to come back. Their spirits, it was thought, were trapped between worlds, full of envy for the living. Archaeologists have found compelling evidence of this practice across Europe. In places like Warham Percy, a deserted medieval village in England, they've unearthed skeletons that show signs of post-mortem mutilation, decapitation, dismemberment, and then they were burned before being reburied. But sometimes, even that wasn't enough. The ultimate solution was to completely destroy the grave itself. So how did they do it? It was a brutal physical act. After the burial, or sometimes even later if trouble started, people would return to the gravesite. Armed with shovels and heavy stones, they would cave in the sides of the grave shaft, piling earth and rocks directly onto the coffin or the body. The goal was to create an impassable barrier of compacted soil and stone. The sheer weight and pressure were meant to physically pin the body down, making it impossible for the deceased to rise. Imagine the scene: a group of villagers working frantically, perhaps by torchlight, driven by a primal fear of what lay beneath the soil. This wasn't just about creating a physical barrier. It was a powerful symbolic act. By collapsing the grave, they were essentially erasing the person's final resting place, severing their connection to the world of the living. It was a declaration: you are not welcome here. Stay where you belong. In their minds, they weren't desecrating a grave. They were protecting their community, performing a necessary, albeit grim, ritual to restore balance and peace. These practices also reveal a lot about their beliefs regarding the body and soul. The physical body was seen as the vessel that a restless spirit would reanimate. Therefore, by containing or even mutilating the body, they believed they could neutralize the spiritual threat. It's a fascinating and somewhat terrifying glimpse into a worldview where the line between the natural and supernatural was incredibly thin. The church, which you might think would discourage such practices, often had a complex relationship with these folk beliefs. Sometimes they condemned them as pagan, but other times, local priests might even sanction or participate in them, seeing it as a way to deal with the perceived evil that theological doctrine couldn't easily explain away. Today, we look back at these practices through the lens of science and reason. We might call it superstition, mass hysteria, or a misunderstanding of decomposition. But for the people of that time, the threat was as real as the dirt they shoveled. These collapsed graves are more than just archaeological curiosities. They are monuments to a deep-seated human fear of death and the unknown, and a testament to the extreme lengths people will go to protect themselves from what they believe lurks in the shadows. It's a stark reminder that our ancestors lived in a very different world, one filled with wonders, but also with terrors we can barely imagine. Thanks for watching, and if you found this journey into the past as fascinating as I did, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more deep dives into history's forgotten corners. See you next time. Have you ever wondered why old churches always have those massive, imposing bell towers? Or why on special occasions, the air fills with the sound of ringing bells? Sure, they call people to prayer or mark the time, but what if I told you there's a much spookier, more ancient reason behind it all? A reason that has to do with things that come back from the dead. That's right, we're talking about revenants. In folklore from all around the world, a revenant is a corpse that has been reanimated to terrorize the living. Think of them as the original zombies, but often with a specific grudge or unfinished business. They were a very real fear for people in the Middle Ages. So how did they protect themselves from these terrifying visitors from beyond the grave? One of their most powerful weapons wasn't a sword or a stake, but sound. Specifically, the deafening, soul-shaking clang of a church bell. Let's dive into the fascinating history of this belief. Before Christianity, many ancient cultures believed that loud noises could scare away evil spirits. Think about firecrackers during New Year celebrations or banging pots and pans. It was all about creating a chaotic, overwhelming sound to drive away unseen malevolent forces. When Christianity spread across Europe, it absorbed and adapted many of these older pagan beliefs. The church bell became the perfect tool for this spiritual warfare. It was loud, it was holy, and it was located at the very heart of the community. The theory was that revenants, being creatures of darkness and silence, were extremely sensitive to loud noises. The powerful, resonating vibrations of a large bronze bell were thought to be physically painful and disorienting to them. Imagine you're a creature that thrives in the quiet of the grave, and suddenly the world is filled with this immense, bone-rattling sound. It would be pure chaos. It was believed that this sound would confuse the revenant, making it impossible for it to find its intended victim or even its way out of the cemetery. The sacred nature of the bell, having been blessed and consecrated, added another layer of divine protection. The sound wasn't just noise. It was a holy barrier, a sonic wall of faith. This practice was especially common during funerals and on holy days. The tolling of the passing bell as a funeral procession moved through the town wasn't just to announce a death. It was a proactive measure. People believed it would prevent the spirit of the deceased from being led astray by evil entities, and more importantly, it would stop the newly dead from rising as a revenant themselves. It was like a spiritual security system. The bell's sound would cleanse the air, confusing any lingering ghouls and ensuring the soul has safe passage to the afterlife, while keeping the body firmly in its grave. Even today, we see echoes of this tradition. The ringing of bells at weddings, for example, can be traced back to this idea of warding off evil spirits that might bring bad luck to the new couple. It's a fascinating example of how an ancient fear of the undead has shaped a tradition we still practice, even if we've forgotten the spooky reason why. So the next time you hear a church bell ring, take a moment to listen. It's not just a call to worship or a remnant of the past. It's the sound of a powerful, ancient tradition, a sound designed to keep the dead, well, dead. It's a sonic shield against the things that go bump in the night. Thanks for watching and exploring this piece of dark folklore with me. If you enjoy digging up the strange and forgotten beliefs of the past, make sure you hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. Ironic, isn't it? See you in the next video.